Welcome to the College of Education 10-Minute Research Break, a podcast devoted to highlighting research by Illinois State University's College of Education, faculty, staff, and students. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and take a break with us.
Hello, I'm Tricia Class. Today I'm talking with Jennifer Lawler, a master's graduate from the reading program in the School of Teaching and Learning, and Linda Haling, formerly Wedwick, who is a faculty member in the School of Teaching and Learning. The article we will discuss today focuses on using independent reading time during school intervention blocks to support student reading growth. Welcome, Jennifer and Linda. Thank you for talking with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
First, could you summarize the research that focuses on the component skills instruction supported by the National Reading Panel, and then the research supporting independent reading time or sustained silent reading?
I think that there is sometimes a misconception about what is often called the phonics versus whole language debate. Generally, most reading researchers agree that reading instruction cannot consist of only phonics instruction or only of reading continuous text with no attention to skills. The National Reading Panel report reviewed a set of literature. Some was excluded, and this has generated some controversy about the findings. But their report reviewed a set of literature around 6 areas: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, comprehension, vocabulary, and independent reading. And the NRP argued that the 5 components, phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary, had a strong scientific, but really more specifically a causal research base, but independent reading did not. So the misconception arose because the NRP was only reviewing studies designed and capable of testing questions of causation. So they're finding that there was not enough available data to suggest that independent silent reading was not an effective practice when it was the only type of reading instruction to develop fluency and other reading skills. This has been misconstrued to imply that independent reading should not be an instructional practice, but that is not true. And even the members of the National Reading Panel said that they were not trying to imply that this should not still be happening in schools, that it still has a positive effect on students' reading, both attitudes and achievement. So the current research does show that allowing students more time to read in schools improves reading achievement, making it a worthy investment of instructional time. For example, Fisher in 2004, Lee 2007, and Wu and Samuels in 2004. Fisher, for example, compared achievement scores from students who were allowed an independent reading block to those who were not, and results showed gains of 0.6 years in reading achievement for students who were allowed to read. Similarly, Wu and Samuels in 2004 found that more time spent reading had a significant effect on achievement compared to the control condition where less time was allocated for independent reading.
Thank you for clarifying that. Jennifer, this research was actually part of your master's degree work. Could you discuss how you were able to translate a topic of personal interest into a major research project?
This was a very important topic to me because I actually spent a year as a teaching assistant in the 5th grade class where my study was done, watching some of my students struggle through more skills-based reading interventions, and they hated every minute of it. So I thought, surely there must be a better way to do this, and the teachers agreed. So with Linda's help, we were able to craft a study trying to show that there's some merit to allowing students more independent reading time in the classroom. We worked with both 5th grade teachers to set up an observation schedule and set up testing measures, and they were very flexible, allowing me into their classroom and giving me a window to what the learners were doing.
I think it was really exciting to see that you were actually visiting classrooms, seeing all the children, and how this was used in an intervention where a lot of people think of more of the canned computer programs or other kinds of interventions. Could you discuss the methods you used to measure the effects of using independent reading on these 5th graders?
Sure. The data was drawn from a couple different measures. One was classroom observations. I was actually in the classrooms watching independent reading times at least twice a week, and I would sit there with a stopwatch and record how much time the teachers allowed students to read books of their own choice. And that data was collected over the course of 8 weeks and averaged to a number for each of the 2 classrooms that I was in. Also, students were required to keep a personal reading log for the time they spent each week. And that data source helped me see general trends, but it was imperfect because they're fifth grade students and not the most thorough record keepers. So there was observations, there was the student data logs. The teachers kept their own logs for times I was not in the classroom, how much time they allowed for independent reading. And the measure that actually helped me see growth was pre- and post-testing with the Fountas and Pinnell system, which matches students' reading ability to a corresponding letter. That helped me see how much students grew from the start of the 8-week period to the end of the 8-week period. So I was able to average their growth and compare it to the amount of time they were spent reading, and found that the more time students spent reading, the more their reading levels went up in general.
Your level of detail collecting that data is really helpful and support the conclusions of this study. You did say you found the correlation between the more time spent with the reading, but then also what are the implications for practice?
Breaking down the results further, what I found most interesting was that while all students grew over the course of the 8-week period, independent reading time really impacted the lower and middle range students in each class the most. So not only did it serve to increase their reading levels, it served to close the achievement gap, which is exactly what intervention time is designed to do. What that tells teachers is that independent reading time is a surefire way to close the achievement gap. It's time well spent, and the students will benefit from it if they're only just given a chance to read.
And I will say, actually, in addition to that, and some of this is in the article too, but this is what Allington has been saying over and over again about the achievement gap, and that is what kids who are behind, they need more time with reading. So a big portion of their day needs to be time spent reading and having intervention time with specialized people in that field.
And it's sad because the lower tier students usually get the least time to read. Their time's usually spent doing other skills-based interventions, and they're not given the opportunity to read, and reading isn't something they'll choose to do on their own free time. So school is their chance to get that practice that they need to develop fluency and increase their reading skills.
So for both of you, because Linda, I know you've worked with a lot of educators, and you, Jennifer, because you are an educator, what would be your advice for educators who would like to conduct action research on instruction of school practices like you did?
I think it's just an absolute necessity, because I think the most important researcher is the classroom teacher, because he or she is in the classroom, they know their students, they're there every day, they have more observation time than other researchers can have going into the classroom. But I also think it's a necessity because there does seem to be this disconnect between teachers and researchers on college campuses, and often teachers will say they feel like research is happening outside of what they do on a daily basis. So I think that the classroom teacher should engage in action research all the time.
I completely agree. There's a big push in schools for all instructional decisions to be research-based and data-based. So it's almost a necessity in order to defend and justify what you're doing in your own classroom. If you can show that your instructional decisions are working, then you've backed up your practice, and supporting that what you're doing is what is working best for your students.
Can communicate that not only to the parents, but to the administration and other teachers, and that becomes more powerful.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for this brief conversation. I hope this discussion will help motivate others to read this school-university partnership research. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The full citation for today's article is Lawler and Wedwick, 2012, The Effect of Time Spent Reading During Intervention Block, published in the Illinois Reading Council Journal, Volume 40, Number 4, pages 26 to 33. The citation can also be found at the website education.illinoisstate.edu/faculty_staff/research/podcast. Join us for future Research Break broadcasts.
This podcast is sponsored by Illinois State University's College of Education, where we strive to assure that all students realize the democratic ideal through our teaching, research, and service to the field of education.